I'd like to welcome you, Dara Feldman, um, to the program. It's been a joy. I don't know how many years that I've known you. It's a long time. In the beginning, fairly intermittent connection, but that's deepened and grown as we've got to know each other. You currently work in your own business as an instructor for the International Institute for Restorative Practice. I love that name. And you've held various roles within the Virtues Project and are currently a master facilitator with the program and living in New York. Yes?
Close. Living a little bit south of New York near Washington, D.C. in Maryland.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. I want to ask you at the outset, what drew you to your current work?
So I do a lot of restorative practices, character education, and social emotional learning. About 12 years ago in the United States, we were getting very focused on academic rigor and testing, and all of the joy, meaning, and purpose was really being stripped out. And around that same time, I found out about the Virtues Project by being honored as Disney's Elementary Teacher of the Year. And I started using the strategies and speaking the language at school, and there was total transformation. And then I started bringing it home. And so my life as an educator, my life as a mom, my life as a wife, as a person, really was transformed by doing this work. And I realized that I had received the Disney honor to find out about the Virtues Project, and then to make the sacrifice to leave the classroom to go share it with other educators and others around the world. And so that's what I'm currently doing, and very grateful to be on this journey.
Yeah. So tell me about that Disney award.
Well, it was interesting because one of the founders of the Virtues Project was a Disney Imagineer.
Yes.
And I was nominated I was teaching kindergarten at the time, and so I was nominated by 3 families and had to create a little bit of information, some essays, and a video. And to my surprise, out of over 150,000 nominees, I was chosen as one of the 43 honorees across the United States, and then selected as the Outstanding Elementary Teacher of the Year. And I do not think that I am a better teacher than anybody, but I'm pretty sure that I'm a little bit crazier than some. And really, when I found out about the Virtues Project, I knew that I had to share with others. So at the end of the school year, I left the classroom, I gave up my job, my tenure, my salary, and volunteered my time to the founders as Director of Education for 7 years. So the learning that happened as a result of that gift has been extraordinary, and now I get to pass it on with others.
Yes, wonderful. So how do you see, there are many practices within the Virtues Project, how do you see that they enhance growth and development?
Well, who we are the virtues. We are born with all of these virtues in us in potential. And when we can just be mindful of the language and be able to be a witness and say, I see your determination, the way you're working through that hard problem without giving up. That awakens the spirit, it awakens the psyche, and it's like, oh, you mean I have determination in me? Oh, it means doing something hard without giving up? Okay, I can keep going. It supports the growth mindset as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember I've shared with you before when I was living in New Zealand, it's probably 4 or 5 years ago, I visited a school just north of Taupo, a primary school, who had been practicing the virtue for around about 7 years, I think. And I'd heard about them, and because I belonged to a virtues group in New Zealand, I was just so keen to go. And so I visited the school for a day, and it was my first experience in depth of seeing people who had fully integrated it. So I visited every classroom, met with all the teachers, and students for a short time. And I just saw in every encounter that everyone was having with everybody, they were just totally in this honouring space, honouring what they saw. And for me, the journey with the virtues has been about, mostly my gift has been learning to be an observer and not a judger. And I don't think I was particularly judgmental. However, we all do, we're human. And it's really been with ease able to take me to that observer space. There was nothing hard about the journey, nothing disciplined, other than I arrived every week for my virtues group and allowed the teaching to just flow. So, in this school, one of the children came while I was in the headmistress's office, upset, a little boy, perhaps 7 or 8, and she asked him what he would need, what virtue he needed in this moment to support him through how he was feeling. And so he chose a virtue from this big basket of stones she had on her desk with the virtues written on. And he returned the stone later in the day. So these children at such a young age were, self-managing in so many ways through the use of the virtues. It was, very aware of who they were. There was one little girl who was my escort as we went from class to class, and she's perhaps maybe 9 or 10, and we're standing outside one classroom, and she put her little hands on her hips and she said, "Do you know, miss," she said, "my father came home really angry last night." And I'm thinking, oh, where is this going? And, do I need to know this? And she said, "So I said to him, Dad, you're not exactly demonstrating the virtue of patience right now, are you?" And everyone that I share that with laughs. I like to think that Dad laughed. But I actually get the power in that in that one sentence. She knew what it was. She could identify it. She could wrap some language around it. And she had the courage to express it.
Courage and the confidence and the assertiveness to, in a courteous way, speak to her dad and even direct him back to his highest self.
Yes. So, the magic of that and the simplicity. It's not hard. I mean, like all things, you do need to devote some time, but even if you only do a minimal practice of drawing a virtue a week and living into that virtue each week with some methodology, it can shift your thinking, and it's permanent. There's no going back after that.
Yeah, so Pat, I really see your enthusiasm for the virtues and your commitment. That's okay. We're going to be steadfast in our unstable connection. And not only have I had, and I imagine you feel the same way, not only has it changed my language, it's changed the way that I view the world, and it also has changed who I am and how I show up.
Yeah, awesome. The one of the triggers for me to be in touch with you this time was a colleague here in Brisbane has a child with autism, and he's been put on detention and or dismissed from school for a few days when he's disrupted the class, and the onus consistently seems to be put back on him to be adjusting his performance, when I so see, I love the work of Bruce Lipton, and many years ago he said, when you change the environment, everything changes. So it's not just I know if I want to improve my outer world, the best thing I can do is improve me, so that I'm showing up and shining a brighter light, expressing more authentically, able to speak my truth at another level. And I've been earnestly seeking that for a while. So what happens around me shifts by merit of that. I couldn't have achieved that if I said, I want you to change my world, because you can't. And I so would love to see, do you have any gems that we could share with this mum, to be perhaps guiding her to different ways to bring influence into that space?
Wow. So a couple things. Let me back up just a little bit while I process that.
Yeah.
Going along with Bruce's work, there's also Dr. David Hawkins, right? And so what Dr. David Hawkins says is everything is energy.
Yes.
And that shame and fear calibrate, they're very low vibration.
Yes.
They actually weaken and they take away your power. And in places where educators and others do not understand the high vibration of people who are on the spectrum, and they come at it from either feel a place of fear or inadequacy, so the shame of not being able to support, manage, and encourage these young people, then that's a lot of where we're seeing them asking them to leave. And it's not really about the students, it's really about the capacity, understanding, and paradigm of the educators. So there's this whole paradigm shift right now. And along the same lines with Dr. David Hawkins' work, the virtues are actually high vibration.
Yes.
And so when we speak the language of virtues, when we get curious instead of furious, as Linda would say, it changes the energetic field. And so there is safety and comfort for everyone, and especially those who vibrate at a different frequency, such as on the autism spectrum. And there's a lot of trauma right now in the world, in the US, but also I imagine around the world. And so when we can create those safe conditions, just by the language that we use and honoring the spirit circling up every day so that everybody has voice and is seen, heard, and valued for who they are, that's one way to not just shift the culture in a school for this woman's child, but for all of the students. Yes. And not just the students, for the educators as well. And it can help to alleviate any of the anxiety. I do a lot of work with schools, and I'm working with about 45 schools in Baltimore right now, and they're really shifting. And so they've been using the term self-control. And in the Virtues Project, we call it self-discipline. So I ask teachers, have you ever tried to control anything? How's that working for you? Right? And then we talk about what discipline is, and that when we can help our students understand what self-discipline is, know that they have it in them in potential, and teach them strategies and remind them to call on self-discipline, that can help shift the culture and make it safer for everybody. Does that make sense? And is that helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the quick thing is just helping people understand the power of language, and coming to a place from an educative perspective instead of a punitive or a permissive perspective.
Yes.
And that gets to the restorative work of the social discipline window. And when we are punitive and we're high on control, but we're low on support and encouragement because I said so, perhaps they will follow directions and be obedient while you're there because they're a little bit nervous. But when you leave, or they go to a special area teacher or somebody else, there's a substitute in your class, chaos is going to break loose because they've not internalized that they have this self-discipline, that they are noble beings. And so that's why it's really important to teach, reinforce, and support and nurture kids and adults to know that who they are, these virtues, and just reinforce it with language.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that expression, noble beings.
We really are, right?
Yes.
And so when we, even like, I just want to sit up straighter when you say noble being. We don't have to be kings and queens, but when we know our own worthiness and we can sit up straight, take a deep breath, do positive self-talk. I actually got that from Sesame Street's Cookie Monster. There's a beautiful video. You can Google Sesame Street self-control, even though it's self-discipline, and Cookie Monster can teach us how to strengthen our own self-discipline. It's really powerful and beautiful. So continuing our growth and our nobility.
Yeah, yeah. You were talking to me earlier before the program about a video on animals. Can you share a little bit about that, a story?
Yes, there's a video called Animal School. It's a story. I'll send you the link. Maybe we can connect it to this. But it's basically where these poor animals, all these different, some fly, some hop, some jump, some swim, they all go to school and all of them are expected to learn the same curriculum the same way. And even though one of the animals might be really, really good at running, they need to stop going to running class and practice flying, that they might not have wings, right? So it's all of the ways that we, even though we're taught to teach to students strengths, which would also be their virtues, for some reason we get amnesia and we take our little the deficits, the strengths end up decreasing. And I watched this with my son when he was in 7th grade. He was brilliant at math and he wasn't doing so well in English. And instead of honoring his strengths in math, I wanted to support him to nurture and grow in English. And when we watched this video, we were both crying at the end. And I was like, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. You know, let's leverage your strengths. And now he's going to go to medical school. So it's a good thing that he was really, really determined to stay strong in math and science. We all have the virtues in us, just in differing strengths. Some of us have a lot of enthusiasm, which leaves room for a little bit of patience. Some of us are very, very orderly and maybe not so flexible, right? So we all have all of these in varying strengths. And let's continue to nurture the ones that are strong while also looking with the miner's cap to find the ones to grow. And we can do that just with our language.
Yes.
I know you know that.
Yeah. I've recently joined the board, a communications board for a group that feeds into the disability sector. And we've been exploring this as well. And one of the things that I've really come to appreciate when you look at the different disabilities and how they impact on individuals, you know, I was just so struck with the high degree of emotional intelligence that's manifest through children with Down syndrome. And it's like, for goodness sake, is this not ever the biggest message to the world around the space in which we could occupy?
Absolutely. And so here's a little teachable moment, and I trust that you won't mind this. I'd like to invite you to consider, instead of saying disabilities, different abilities.
Yes.
Because you just said that. You just honored, right? And we all have our different strengths. I have a former student who wants to help create some different, like, wheelchairs and things to help people be handi-capable instead of handicapped. So it's the way that we look at things, it's our mindset, it's our language, and we all have gifts. And so let's start looking for the gifts and seeing how that we can spread the love and enhance people's understanding of their inherent worth and nobility.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Thank you for your openness.
As we come towards the close, I said to you I wanted to find out things that I didn't know about you, and I have some cards for uniqueness against the ordinary, numbered 1 to 50. Would you like to pick 3 numbers between 1 and 50? And I'm going to ask you whatever questions those cards have.
Sure. So number 9.
Yes.
Number 19.
Yes.
And my birthday number, number 24.
Yes. Awesome. So question number 9. Nice. What boundaries do you need, Dara, to stay? What boundaries do you need in place to stay in your integrity?
Oh, to stay in my integrity. Okay, I can do that one, because boundaries in terms of time and giving, not so much. What boundaries do I need to stay in my integrity? That's a beautiful question. I think I need assertiveness and courage, because I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Okay.
And as a professional developer, it's my responsibility to help, uplift and enhance and help people see something different. And it might be uncomfortable. So I have to have the courage to be assertive, to say, oh, perhaps you might want to think about it a little bit differently. And that helps me to stay in my integrity in terms of virtues. And then, I have the integrity meter right here, my heart or my gut. If I'm out of integrity, I can barely function. So that's what helps me to stay in my integrity.
Number 19, the question is, what are you excited or curious about?
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited and curious about so many things. I'm really excited to see how, now that schools are on this restorative practices journey and really open to the Virtues Project, how not only school culture changes, but how it permeates throughout the communities, in the cities, in the states, in the countries, and really uplifts humanity as a whole. And I've just redone the Virtues Project apps for the iPhone and the Android. Yes. And so I'm excited to get that out in the world so people can remember who they are and yes. Speak.
I have the old app on my phone, and I use it even in conferences. It might come up and there's a random moment and it's like, we can do that. And you can do an instant pick. Wonderful. I love it. So this is interesting. So for your birthday, the 24th, question is, listening carefully, if Mattell were to design a Barbie or Ken doll of you, what would it be called and what would it be like?
Okay, use the face. Clearly, I don't call on self-discipline. I just think about Barbies. No offense to Mattell and the stereotypes and the white privilege and the distortion for women and all of the microaggressions. I would hope that instead of a physical form of a doll for me, that there would be some way of demonstrating and inspiring enthusiasm, joy, and purpose.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Fun.
They're wonderful questions, and the creator, Heidi, is what a wonderful, beautiful lady. Her business is UP, Unique Power, and taking a very different approach. Wonderful, wonderful methodologies. So as we come to a close, thank you for being with us. I'd like to ask you, is there a favourite quote that you have or a message you'd like to give the listeners today as a final?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in the state of Maryland in the United States, and we have a famous African American by the name of Frederick Douglass. And one of his quotes is so near and dear to my heart. And it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so I truly believe that when we speak the language of virtues, we recognize teachable moments, we set clear boundaries based on restorative justice, we honor the spirit of ourselves and one another, and we can listen somebody into their own solution, that will build strong individuals and can also help to heal those who have been broken.
Yes. Thank you so much. I know people are going to want to know where to find you and to find more of your resources. The best place for them to go?
The best place is darafeldman.com, just DARAFELDMAN.com. Feel free to reach out to me if I can be of service in whatever capacity. And Pat, I want to just honor you for always being so optimistic and joyful and combining joyfulness and purpose and creativity to help transform the world. Blessings to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Love engaging with you. We'll talk again. Bye for now.
And see each other in future.